Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and this is my double review for episodes 1 and 2 of Kill La Kill, made by the same studio that did Tengen Toppo Gurren Lagann. Um, and I'm just gonna get into the review because it's gonna be long, so I'll try to make it as short as possible. Pretty much, we learn in the very beginning that it's a society. It takes place in a society where Hitler won World War II. It's a fascist society, and right away we're introduced to Ira Gamaguri, and he's the chair of the disciplinary committee. Now he comes into the classroom that the teacher's teaching in. You can see Mako sleeping, and he says that they're looking for someone who poses a threat to the school and everything, and it's incredibly obvious who the guy is. He's sitting there like, and he's sweating and everything right next to Mako, who's sleeping. Then he just gets his tear gas bomb and tries to run away. And he's running down the stairs, and Gamaguri, you can see him running on the outside, just jumping down, and he's got this evil laugh going on as he jumps. Then the kid opens up the door and he's standing there waiting for him. Then we learn that the kid stole a 1-star Goku uniform, and the kid puts it on. He gets thinner, and his body gets more built, and he's like, yes, I can feel the power rushing through me. So then Ira takes out this whip and he starts trying to hit him, and the kid's dodging him. Like, yeah, that's right. That's right, I'm better than you now. And he gets cocky, and he tries to punch Ira Gamaguri, and it doesn't do anything. And he's just standing there like, I have a 3-star Goku uniform. You think you can do something against me with 1 star? And then he takes his whip and starts just beating him and beating him and beating him. Eventually, the whip just wraps around him and throws him against the wall, rips the Goku uniform off of him. He kills the guy. He legitimately kills the guy. It gets confirmed later by Mako. But yeah, he legitimately kills the guy. And after that, we're introduced to Satsuki Kiryui, who was the president, and we're also introduced to the main character, Ryuko Matoi. And pretty much, she's walking through the city. She gets her lemon stolen by Mataro. She beats his crew in like a second and a half. We end up getting legitimately introduced to Mako after that. She puts Mataro in a bunch of wrestling holds like a Boston Crab, and then she hops on the bus so that she's not late to school. I'm not good at handling her at all. She's too hyper for me. But the entire family is. Mataro's the only one I can legitimately handle. But I'll talk about them later when I get to episode 2. But pretty much, Riko goes to Honoji Academy. She sees that kid that got killed by Ira just hanging in front of the gate. She legitimately transfers into the school and sits next to Mako. Mako is showing her around. Then the disciplinary committee just comes by, and Ira's leading them. And then Satsuki is behind them. So, Mako starts telling Ryuko like how things go around there. That the uniforms go from no star, 1 star, 2 star, all the way up to 3 star. Pretty much, we end up being told that Ira is one of the 4 elites of the student council, and that he has a 3-star uniform. The uniforms give people superhuman powers. And then once Ryuko sees Satsuki, she figures out, like, obviously she's a student council president, she's the top dog here, maybe she knows something, so she comes out and challenges her, brings out the scissor blade. She brings out the scissor blade, and she starts talking about all this stuff, and then the captain of the boxing club, he comes out. His name's Takaharu Fukuroda, and he just punches her. She goes flying into the crowd of the disciplinary committee guys. Then she comes back up. She tries to fight back, but it's not happening. Fukuroda just dominates her. And she ends up running away. She takes this dude's bike, drops off his packages, and then just runs away. And the teacher from earlier who was teaching the class, he's just watching her. Now, clearly this guy's an important character, but he's a mystery. But we end up going to the student council and learning the names of the rest of the 4 elites. We have Uzu Tsunagayama, and he's the chair of the athletic committee. We have Hoka Inumuta, who is the chair of the Information and Strategy Committee. And then we have Nonon Jakuzude, who is the chair of the Non-Athletic Committee. And if you look at the opening in episode 2, you can kind of get a taste of what their powers are. It looks like Nonon uses music in some way, shape, or form. You know, the Hoka Inamuta, it looks like he changes his body into like data or something. Like it's really weird. I can't really tell what Tsunagayama's power is, but maybe if I watched the opening a few more times, I'll be able to, like, maybe watch it in slow-mo or something, I'll be able to figure it out. But you can kind of get a taste of what their powers are like. They're talking with Satsuki, and Satsuki says that the scissor blade is able to cut Goku uniforms. And once she learns that Riko's last name is Matoi, she recognizes that name. So obviously she has something to do with Riko's goal. But Riko ends up going back to her house, and it's destroyed. But she says that her father was killed, and that she's looking for the person who killed him. The person who killed him is the one who owns the other half of the scissor blade. That's why she's looking for the other half of the scissor blade to find out who killed her father, and then get revenge. But she ends up falling through this trap door. And for some reason, the teacher followed her back to her house. So this guy's clearly suspicious. He left school, left his duties at school to follow this girl back to her house. That's Anyway, she falls through the trap door, and the teacher does a Bishonen jutsu. He just like pushed his hair back, and all of a sudden he's this real handsome guy. His glasses come off, his facial hair goes away. He does a complete Bishonen jutsu transformation. From if you watch Naruto the Abridged series, then you might know what I'm talking about by Bishonen jutsu. But pretty much Ryoko falls down to this place, I guess, and her arm is bleeding. It soaks into this uniform on the ground. And pretty much the uniform comes to life, and it starts trying to rape her pretty much. It starts ripping off her clothes and everything. It's ridiculous. But we go back to school, and we find out that Mako's been kidnapped, and they're going to execute her in oil. So Ryuko has to go and try and save her. The teacher's sitting there watching this, saying, like, really, these kids are out of control. And the principal's like, hey, there's nothing we can do. Alright, President Satsuki, her mother is the chairman of the board of directors. We're just her underlings. Satsuki is the one who runs this school, so we can't do anything. But Riko shows up, obviously, and saves Mako. She ends up starting to fight Fukuroda. Ryoko reveals her new Goku uniform, her Kamui. And it's just pretty it's pretty fan servicey, just a little bit. So Fukuroda, there's some comedy in there. Fukuroda's saying, well, I'll just take off my clothes then too. She's like, no, please don't, please. But then he ends up taking off his soft gloves and revealing his actual gloves. Apparently he hides them because if he had his real gloves on, no one from other schools would want to fight him. But he starts punching Ryuko. For some reason, he's punching the armor. There's a bunch of bare skin. There's bare skin everywhere. But somehow he is managing to avoid every spot of bare skin and punch only where the armor is. I don't know how, but hey, what are you gonna do? But she ends up beating him pretty easily, destroying his Goku uniform. And then there's this red string that appears from the uniform, and it gets absorbed into her Goku uniform. so we don't really know what that's about yet, but it's pretty much how the episode ends. Um, it's I don't it's hard to kind of it's hard to judge the episode because it was so crazy. There was so much stuff going on, but you kind of have to watch it with your brain turned off. But I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I'll say it was a pretty good episode. Um, it was just so crazy. Like, things are confusing. I can't really say it's great because half the stuff didn't really make any sense at first. Um, but yeah, that episode gets an 8 out of 10. Um, it's just you need to leave some time for all of it to sink in, and even then, you're still like trying to figure out what's going on. So I'll just give it an 8. But that's it for episode 1. Episode 2 starts off pretty much same exact place. Ryuko is pointing her sword at Satsuki, trying to challenge her, but Senketsu, that's what she ends up calling the uniform. Senketsu tells her that, you've got 5 minutes until you pass out from blood loss. So she ends up running away. Not before we learn that Ryuko's dad's name is Ishin. But yeah, she ends up running away. She loses consciousness. People find her. She ends up being saved by Mako and Mataro's dad, who kills most of his patients. And we end up getting introduced to their mom as well, who apparently who says it's okay for Ryuko to beat up Mataro. I don't know how many mothers in the world would tell people they're meeting for the first time that it's okay for them to beat their children, beat their own children. This family, I can't deal with them. Mataro's the only one I can actually deal with. The rest of them are crazy. They're just too much for me. But the dad kills most of his patients, and the mom let strangers beat her children. What is wrong with these people? Oh my god. Anyway, we end up getting shown the sewing club at the school. They're making Goku uniforms, and in the factory where they're making the uniforms, or the club room, I guess you could call it, all those red strings from last episode, there are a bunch of them just floating around everywhere. So it's safe to assume that those are like a main ingredient of the Goku uniforms, probably what gives them their power or something like that. And it's also safe to assume that whenever Ryuko absorbs one, she gets a power-up, a little power boost. So yeah, that's probably what the secret of the red string is. But we end up getting introduced to Omiko Hakodate, who is the captain of the tennis club. And Satsuki ends up giving her a 2-star uniform, specifically a tennis uniform. So apparently the upcoming interleague tennis match with Hokkaido, I believe it was, apparently it's armed suppression in disguise. So if they win a tennis match, they'll control northern Japan. So apparently someone was a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Having a game decide the fate of the world. Obviously they watched a little too much Yu-Gi-Oh! But that's it for that scene. We get a little flashback of Senketsu and Ryuko from when Senketsu first put himself on Ryuko, and he says that he drank her blood, and that's how he transformed like that. He says that he was created by Ishin, and seems like an important fact that you might want to remember, but apparently Ryuko forgets that. She forgets that later on, but I'll get to that eventually. But her and Mako are going to school. If she's late, again, she's going to be expelled, so they're trying to hurry. Mako mentions that how smart you are determines where you live, whether you live in the slums or whether you live in some high-end district. But after that, Mako and Ryuko, they end up getting to school, and as they're talking, Mako just gets pelted in the face with tennis balls. And according to Omiko, if you miss a practice, you get 110 million serves to the face. And Riko's trying to tell her, hey, it's not like she missed practice because she wanted to, it's because she got kidnapped. And Omiko says, it doesn't matter because she got kidnapped without permission. So Riko blocks the tennis balls and allows Mako to run away to get to school on time. And Ryuko challenges Omiko. And she forgets that Senketsu needs her blood to activate, and she gets beaten incredibly easily. So she ends up running away again, like losing consciousness in the sewers or something. And yet again, the teacher is just a stalker or something. He was following her again somehow. And somehow, some way, he was in the sewers and saves her. He takes off all of her clothes and fixes up her injuries, like wraps them all and everything. And we learn that his name is Aikudo Mikisugi, actually. Aikudo Mikisugi. And he draws her blood and activates Senketsu for her and tells her yet again that's what you need to do to activate Senketsu. But also he knows, what's it called? Like the needle? The stuff with the needles? I'm sure you know what I mean. But, what is it called? I'm trying to blank here. It starts with an A. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Pretty much, he ends up stripping. He ends up stripping. So, you know, next time Kyoani wants to make an anime like Free, they should take notes on like the real way to do fan service. If you're trying to make an anime that both guys and girls like, and you're trying to have fan service in it for girls and guys, you have to make sure that it's fan service that both guys and girls will find funny and enjoy. Alright? Fan service in Free is not funny. Fan service here is funny. Okay, so that's the right way to do fan service for girls. But anyway, he explains that Ishin created Kamui to be a power that surpasses the Goku uniforms. So now that she knows how to activate Senketsu, she goes back to challenge Omiko. And Aikudo gives her this like glove thing. I forgot what it's called, like Seki something. But he gives her the glove thing so that she can draw blood whenever she wants. So she goes back and saves Mako yet again because she's tied up and she's getting pelted again by serves. And she challenges Omiko again. And this time she activates the glove, music starts to play, Senketsu like comes to life and eats her. It looks incredibly painful. And even Omiko says, like, yeah, that looked pretty painful. But yeah, she activates Senketsu. A tennis court comes out of nowhere. And they start playing tennis. Mako frees herself and says, yeah, you know, she spazzes out pretty much. She starts talking about all this shonen friendship stuff. Like, yeah, she won with friendship, therefore she won the match. But if you want to face her in tennis, she'll beat you in that too. Here you go. And then she leaves. Shinriko's like, all right, sure. But the match starts, and Senketsu, every once in a while, Senketsu will release steam from its body, just like at random places. I really don't know what that's about. Maybe that's what like increases the strength of like the grip or something, increases the strength of the uniform or something like that. And whenever he does it, it looks like it gets tighter around certain areas. But yes, I don't really know what the steam is about, but Senketsu releases steam a lot. Pretty much what happens in this match is that Ryuko gets dominated. It ends up being 40 love. So she ends up using the scissor blade as her racket because she's too strong for other rackets. So as soon as she swings, the racket just shatters because she's squeezing too hard. But so Nagayama's saying, yeah, you can't use a scissor blade as a racket. That's against the rules. But then Satsuki shows up, shining as always, like Maxie from Dog and Scissors. All she needs is men in black surrounding her, saying, "Yes, Satsuki-sama, no Yurutori." But she shows up shining as usual and allows it. And they ignore the rules of tennis. And Rico beats her in one hit, pretty much. Well, not one hit, but like in one point. And she she hits the ball so hard that Omiko tries to block it, and her face ends up being pressed against the tennis racket. Her skin starts going through, and it looks incredibly painful. But she ends up destroying her Goku uniform. Another red string is created, and Senketsu absorbs that as well. She sends Omiko flying into the crowd. She's like lying on top of these like spike things coming out the wall. There's a skeleton next to her. This show is crazy. There's a skeleton laying next to her, and pretty much Senketsu tells Ryuko that there's 2 minutes left until she loses consciousness from blood loss. Ryuko and Satsuki cross swords for a little bit, but then she ends up running away with Mako. Satsuki's sword can cut Kamui, but the scissor blade was able to stop it. So Satsuki's actually impressed by that, so maybe sometime soon Satsuki will eventually put on her own 3-star Goku uniform, because she doesn't wear one. She thinks that her sword is enough. But now that she sees that the scissor blade might be able to counter it, she might just put on her own 3-star Goku uniform, and then she'll be incredibly OP. But I thought this episode was pretty good as well. Actually, I'll say it was great. That fan service scene was actually incredibly funny. Stuff like the skeleton, the random skeleton there, Mako and Mataro's parents. I can't handle them at all, but they are funny. So, I'll say that this episode was great. So yeah, I'll give this episode of the second episode of Kill La Kill a 9 out of 10. And yeah, that's it. I'll be reviewing this weekly as well. Like I said in my double review for Freezing Vibration, Strike the Blood might be up by the end of the night. Kuroko might be up by the end of the night as well. Magi probably won't be. I'll probably get Magi done tomorrow. Since not only do I have an exam on Tuesday, I also have a presentation I have to do on Tuesday. I didn't mention that. So I actually am pretty busy. And I still have this, so Pokemon Y. But yeah, so Magi's not gonna be up by the end of the day, probably not. But I still have to. I haven't even watched the second episode yet. But yeah, that's it for this double review of Kill La Kill. First episode in 8, second episode in 9, and that's it for now. So I'll see you guys next time.